is everyone? Welcome back. Today we're not talking about gameplay or deck techs. Today we're talking about how to improve your game. All right. Most players think that playing more games makes them better, but it doesn't. Playing with attention makes you better. So today we're talking about how to identify who the beatdown is and what that means. This is an old article written by Mike Flores and Magic that applies to all TCGs. So we're going to basically be doing the Riftbound edition. Okay. So I'll be using Riftbound Legends for this as well. So your improvement is going to explode when you stop autopiloting your deck and instead identify your role in the matchup and what you need to do. All right, so we've all heard of different types of decks, like there's mid-range, aggro, control, combo, tempo. But at the end of the day, you're basically in a matchup, you're going to be either the aggressor or the one playing control. That's what it means to identify who beatdown is, right? A great example of a deck that has mid-rangey and that can adapt very well to the aggro or control matchup, or being aggro or control deck, is the Kaisa deck in Riftbound. So Kaisa is a great deck that is usually the aggressor in most cases, especially in set one, but it becomes more of a control deck specifically against Annie. So against Annie, Kaisa is usually has to be the control deck and remove Annie's units. And make sure Annie can't score too many points or get to 6 before Annie can then have Vi and ride the win for the last 2 points. So in most cases, Kaisa is the aggressor. Even the list that got second at Houston is playing Arena's Greatest, which is a battlefield that gives you a point, both players point, and rewards the aggressive player. But again, against Annie, you can't be super aggressive. You have to play a little more reserve and hold your things back. And identifying that is massive. So identifying who the aggressor is and who the control is, especially in a mirror match, is gonna be key. So for example, let's say you have a Kaisa mirror match. You're gonna play versus draw, right? A lot of times, if you are on the draw, and you have like Void Seeker, and they play unit, it's usually correctest to hold the Void Seeker, deny them points, and then take over from there. You basically become the deck that is controlling if you have more removal. Or the opposite is true if you're the aggressor. Also, if you have more aggressive units, or if you're playing like the accelerate unit that is accelerates for 2 Legion Extruder, or not Legion Extruder. It's the 2-drop that attacks with accelerate. So how do you figure out if you're the aggressor or if you're the control deck? Basically, you have to ask yourself who wins the long game. Which deck rewards the length of time being played. The deck that wins the long game shouldn't attack recklessly. So think like of Aurora. Think of like Misfortune, right? So if we have Misfortune here, here we go. So if we have Misfortune, then you usually don't want to be holding or attacking aggressively. You want to play more reserved, and you want to usually do things when on your turn. So basically, you want to retreat from battlefields, and then go in when you have more knowledge and more control. Aurora usually loses when it's more aggressive. If you are not, if you let's say you, for example, you are being aggressive with your Mind Splitters and you casting them on with 7 energy, setting yourself back from casting Aurora next turn. If you talk to top deck it because you have to recycle 2 power. Now you're playing recklessly, and you're going to get punished for that, right? So it's important to know that, hey, I'm a control deck. I'm going to be losing early, but I need to get to a certain point 9 or whatever to catch back up and then win the late game. And the player who loses the long game needs to be more aggressive. So if your late game deck, if you become the late game deck, your job is to not lose the game. You're not trying to win. You're trying to not lose by trading resources 1 for 1, using points as your resource, and just coming back in the game, right? Until you can win with your late game plan. If you lose the long game, you then become the aggressive deck. It doesn't mean like playing super hyper aggressive and using all your runes and energy and tapping all the time. It just means playing smart but being aggressive. Your job is to make your opponent take an action or lose before they're inevitability kicks in. So, for example, if you are playing Kaisa, you want to pressure against Aura. You want to pressure the Aura deck to have to cast a unit or play a unit on turn 7 or with seven energy or 7 or 8 energy before they play Aurora. That way, if they don't, you will just beat them, right? So that is a more simple game plan. Basically, you want to push them enough where they have to react, and they can't trade 1-for-1 resources and get to the late game. If you don't identify your role in a certain match, you will lose games that you shouldn't. It's very crucial to identify if you should be playing more reserve because you have inevitability, or if you should be the aggressor and push the control deck into playing earlier and not waiting to their inevitability kicks in. Again, as I mentioned earlier, how Aurora, newer players with Aurora will hold the battlefield. It's correct to not hold and just back up and just play safe. Unless you have to hold because you put your opponent's scoring. But usually it's better to play safe, pull units back at base, and then go in. Because the last thing you want to do is have Aurora in play, and then you have no units because you've been holding, and all of a sudden your opponent has at 6 points, and now you trigger Aurora, becomes the base, and you can't do anything. You can't hit dead limb or whatever, and your opponent will score, win the game. Also, another example of Aurora, because of misfortune, where it's going to be reversed. So when does Aurora have to be the aggressor? Well, if there's 2 Aurora decks, one has to be the aggressor, the other one has to be control. And usually it involves who can stick a unit before the other player gets Aurora. A more obvious example of this is, for example, Misfortune Aurora versus Master Yi Aurora, right? So this example is Master Yi, when his legend says when he holds, he gets +2 might with a single unit. So if you are Misfortune, you're going to be more aggressive, and because you have things like Mind Splitter, you're better off just playing that unit early, just to hold a battlefield. Because if Yi is able to hold 1 or 2 battlefields, it's going to be harder for you to hold because they have the same units as you. Some are just naturally bigger because depending on builds, but they get more might just from having 1 unit on the battlefield. So you have to go in there and make sure you can start holding before they stabilize. Even earlier yesterday, I was playing Lux Control, right? I was playing against Ezreal, and Ezreal is a deck that gets a bunch of card advantage, draws a bunch of cards, and just has a bunch of gas going and ability with their last rights. And as Lux, I'm trying to grind people out with 1-for-1 removal, drawing cards for my removal. But against Ezreal, I couldn't do that. So I had to be the aggressor. I have to play Vanguard of the Armory, make a bunch of units, and then just aggressively attack before they can amass a bunch of cards with Rasas and last rights and then just take over the game. I have to essentially be the aggressor. I was able to win that because I played my units as early as possible. I didn't hold up removal, and I just kept going in and forcing them to react instead of dig through their deck and doing their graveyard for Rasa and stuff. So that is a great example where the control deck had become the aggressor in another control matchup. So a great question to ask yourself when you're playing a match, and you don't know the matchup. Is just ask yourself, what is my role for this game? Am I the aggressor? Am I the control deck? Don't ask yourself, what does my deck do? Don't ask, what do I feel like what do I feel like doing, or what's the coolest, flashiest play? We're not trying to make the coolest, flashiest play of being competitive. If you're trying to make content, different story. But if you're trying to win, you need to establish what your role is, what your opponent's role is, and what they're doing. This is why sometimes a rogue deck will win an event, because people don't know if they are going to be the aggressor or the control against them because they don't know what's the contents of their list. And then usually that rogue deck will top 8 or sometimes even win a tournament. Then afterwards, the list is public, and then people when they play against that deck will know, okay, I know the deck's trying to do. So I know that. So I know I need to be aggressive, or I know I need to just chill. They're not, I'm the inevitable deck. I have more in game. So that's why. That's also an example of why knowing what your role is so important. This may seem simple, but it is actually crucial. Like if you misjudge what you are in Aurora deck and you like aren't aggressive enough and you give them time to just play Dazzling Aurora, then you would lose, right? It's the same. It's the same for different decks as well. It's just you have to figure out which one it is. So I'm gonna leave you with that. So next time you're game, ask yourself what your goal is, what you're gonna do, like what is your role for that matchup. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.